Hello, today I'll be comparing these two fuse blocks and show you the inside and outside. On the left we've got a Blue Sea Systems fuse block, and on the right an Endark or however you pronounce it. Basically a cheap one you find on Amazon. They all look the same. So the Blue Sea Systems fuse block looks like this underneath the cover. It came with one fuse. Now the other one looks like this. Although this is how it originally looks, I have modified it since. You'll see it in the video a bit later. A few things that I reacted upon. Maybe it's just because I expected the world and I didn't get the world. I got this, and it's fine. It's probably more than fine, but I only got one fuse, and it does say in the package actually on the notes, fuse is not included. But with the cheap one, I actually got fuses and some spares as well. Next, let's talk about the bus bar or main terminals. Here you can actually get to the main terminal, or I should say you can actually get to the bus bar, that metal piece underneath the bolt. The wire lug will actually sit flush against it, as it should do, because it's higher up than the plastic. That's not the case with this cheap one, I'm afraid. As you can see, I'm forced to put the wire lug on top of the bolt, because if we remove the first bolt that tightens everything down, there's another bolt, because the actual main bus bar is underneath the plastic. You can't get to it. So the current is forced to flow through that little surface area and through the actual nut, which is not optimal. That's not the way it should be. So the Blue Sea Systems one seems a lot better there, though it does have a weakness in my opinion, and it's the width of it. It's not very wide, is it? But these are so small. They're like minuscule. I can use these sizes, but and they're 6 mil. I could probably use a 10 or 16 in that style. But I couldn't use, I put them away now, but my bigger lugs I put in there, the solid ones that I'd use for this sort of bus bar. Even a 35mm one would not fit there. But the package or the note said good for 25 to 116 square millimeter wire, and for 25 to 116 square millimeter wire, you obviously need a 25 to 116 square millimeter lug. But they won't fit onto there. Unless the lug is very small, mine are quite big. But despite this flaw, I still think that it's better than this, which is the cheap fuse block, because you can't access it. To avoid this issue though, I upgraded it, or I should say I modified it a bit. I decided to cut away the plastic, just so I can get to the actual bus bar, and it turned out alright. It's quite wide, as you can see, a lot wider than the other one, though I'm not sure it's better yet. We'll have to look at the thickness of it as well. Okay, back to the Blue Sea Systems. These are the stats. So on paper, they're the same as the cheap one. I'm going to open it up, see what it looks like inside, compare it to that one. See if it's really worth the hype. But before that, I'm going to open up the cheap one first. So this is the cheap fuse block I got a while ago. This is the back side, and that's the inside. And I complained or criticise the quality of it because the bus bar was very, let me just turn that torch off, it's a bit on the flashlight. The bus bar is very thin, it's like a millimetre or so, and they were kind of wiggly, these. I can't really show with one hand, but when I hold it upside down, and you can hear it rattles, when I hold it upside down they fall out. And this is also about a millimetre in thickness. I'll check with a tool in a bit. But then I got this Blue Sea Systems one. I've taken the cover off as well. Let me just put the flashlight on again. Now, as I already said, the main terminal, or the bus bar, isn't very wide. But I thought maybe underneath the plastic would be wider and... oh, okay, that doesn't help the fact that you can't fit big lugs on, but I thought it would just be wider and thicker underneath. But it wasn't. Let me show you. Okay, so my first reaction was a bit exaggerated maybe. I was disappointed, that's why. But it does look better than the cheap one now that I'm looking at the video, but still. And I can't say I'm impressed, to be honest. It's pretty much the same quality as this cheap one. I really thought there'd be a thick, you know, like 2-3 millimeter thick bar in here, because it's rated for 100 amps, as well as the negative side. I expected it to be thicker than that, but it's... I can't really see from the side, but it's flimsy. It's actually flimsy. these were loose. Some of them had come off and were laying on and there. I also thought there would be some type of residue keeping these all in place, not allowing me to open this at all. But they just sit into these slots and they rattle. Let me just pluck one out. Nothing special. Sure, I mean, yeah, it's very small, so I guess 30 amps could be pushed through there, no issue, but let's compare it to the cheap one. You tell me, is there any difference in thickness? There versus, this is the cheap one, versus there. There's a bit, but I don't think there's a lot. This is the Blue Sea. So on camera, the Blue Sea one on the left looks a little bit thicker, but when I measured it, and also when I was in the room, it didn't look very different. I can't really see how this handles that much more. And the actual, this is the most shocking part. I was so unimpressed by this. But I'm not much more impressed by this one. It's probably wider because it is bent up like as a U, so once if it were to be like folded out, it'd probably be wider than this. So that's always something, but it's thin. It's really thin. Let me just put the flash back on. Let's measure so we actually know the exact measurements. Now this tool might not be very precise, but it's about 0.5 millimeter in thickness. The budget one. Probably the same when it comes to the actual positive side of things. Let's just check anyway. About 0.5 millimeter in thickness there as well. Now let's check the Blue Sea Systems. This was the thickest part I could find. As you can see, it's a little bit over half, maybe it's 0.6 millimeters instead of 0.5. If I take it from over here instead, got about the same as the cheap one. Doesn't want to focus really. 0.5, 0.6, somewhere there. Can't really get to underneath it, like here. But I'm guessing it's the same thickness. This is probably the same thickness as this part. And these as well. Let's check those as well. About 0.5 mil, maybe even less. 0.4 perhaps. I expected more from that. And the cheap one. This will be even smaller. Yeah, I think that's about 0.3, 0.4. So ever so slightly thinner, but I said previously, I think I've said that before, I wouldn't trust this one with more than 50 amps, even if it says 100 amps. If it's long term, I wouldn't want more than 50 amps, and maybe 60, I don't know. And then each terminal 15 to 20 amps, not 30. This one, I would not trust that with 100 amps either, continuously, and 30 for each of those. Maybe 20, 30 for these, but I wouldn't want to push really more than, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 amps for this, because it's just not thick. I haven't actually done any testing when it comes to heat and like putting them under load with some appliances, but it'd be interesting to try that. I can do that once I've installed it. Okay, it might handle the current, but I believe it might get warm and there'd be unnecessary losses in heat. I am not impressed. I do realise though that these are still more flimsy, like the actual main studs. This thing comes off. It kind of just sits in there, in that little slot. So in that sense, this is actually like pop riveted, or either it's riveted or welded. No, it can't be welded, it's plastic. But squeezed, and these pieces might actually be welded together. Or maybe it's just, first of all, screwed into there, and then I think it might be maybe welded, at least that part's with that bolt. Same goes for here. So it's a bit more sturdy, They are well known and people like them. You seldom hear complaints about them, but I'm not impressed. I'm not going to say it's awful. It's not awful, and I'm sure it works because most people won't pull 100 amps continuously all the time with it. They'll use a few appliances at a time, and those appliances might not even use 30 amps. They'll probably use like 2 amps or 10 amps, 15, another 7 or 2 or whatever. So it's never going to have that type of current. But if it says that it's rated for it, you expect it to be able to handle it. And I don't think it would. Or it would, of course it would, but I think it'd get hot. And there'd be losses in energy, and I don't want things to get hot. Voltage drop as well. It would act a bit like a resistor, I think. But I've yet to try it. Maybe it's just I expected more from such a well-known brand. But I shouldn't say I'm super disappointed. I'm just disappointed for being Bluesea. That's kind of what I expected to find in the poor quality ones now that I've opened the poor quality ones up. But I paid twice as much or more for this one, so I expected twice as much at least for it. But no, similar to me. These wires are for the lights, those lights, and they indicate whenever a fuse is gone. That's a feature this one has that the Bluesea Systems one doesn't, at least the one I bought. There might be others with this feature. Some people have reported issues with their lights, or more specifically, whenever they pull a fuse out, they still get a reading on the actual terminal. It might say 10 volts or 12 volts, 7 volts. It might not be as high as the original source, but there'll be some voltage there. Or they might try it with a continuity meter and still get like a reading, even though they pulled the fuse out. This is because of the wire. There's a wire from the main bus bar to a circuit board where the lights are, and then from there to the terminal. But it's not anything to worry about because under load you don't get the same results. It's just a false reading, or a reading you might get with like low current devices, maybe 1 or 2 LED lights, nothing more. I actually tried it with one LED light, one of those, and a 19 volt source. Hooked it up to there, pulled, and it was bright, pulled the fuse out. It was still lit, but very dimly, and they use such a small amount of current. So if that would have been a motor or anything, if it would have been a few amps, it would not have worked. So the fuses still work here, and if you're worried about that, you can always chop these off. This one doesn't have anything like that, so I guess you can't get any false readings in that way. And I do think this is probably better quality. The plastic's way thicker, at least. No, actually it's not. The plastic's the same. And it feels a bit more flexible, so maybe it is slightly different, but just the overall feel when I felt the weight of it. This one is slightly heavier, but not a lot. I'm going to weigh them. Here I've got the top and bottom parts on top of each other. 234 grams, Bluesea. I couldn't be bothered to screw it together, but I've done the same with the cheap one and put the parts on top of each other. Okay, so this one was 33 grams heavier. But who knows, that might be the plastic, because if you look at it, it's a bit longer, and they're roughly the same width, but not the same length. So that could just be plastic. Copper-wise, I don't think there's a lot more copper there than there. I haven't done the heat test yet, or like put them under load, so I can't say for sure, but this quality, thickness-wise, material-wise, didn't seem that much better than this. Slight correction. I'm not sure if the Bluesea Systems one might have a higher percentage of copper compared to the other one, because the other one might have more brass or something. I haven't scratched or cut the material or the metal open to look inside in that way. I don't want to break them yet. Case-wise, I like this case. Ironically enough, there we go. I was about to say, it comes off a lot easier, but it does with 2 hands. Easier than that case comes off, but it's a bit sturdy, I think, build-wise, a little bit, how it's mounted. But most of all, the best thing about it is probably the fact that you don't have to cut away the plastic to get to the bus bar, compared to this one, which has been a bit modified. Going back to the Bluesea Systems here, you can get to these terminals without cutting away the plastic. On this side, I actually noticed that you can't really, oh, it's too dark. The actual main flat bar there underneath is underneath this plastic, so you can't get to it. You have to use those washers. It's almost as if the design was really bad, but instead of actually just redesigning it and doing it properly, they thought, let's just add some washers there and problem solved. That's not how to do things. Came with some labels that you stick onto here. So did this one. And this one came with fuses, not just one fuse. Sure, this fuse might be better in quality. Before I would have said absolutely, but I am not so sure, to be honest, because this quality didn't seem that superior over this one. Maybe people will disagree, but I haven't seen too many people open these up and look inside. Would I pay 2 to 3 times as much for this and that? I'm not so sure. It's a little bit better, not that much. But maybe I'll change my mind once I've done the test. The test being putting both of them under the same load, I don't know, say 100 amps or something, and then checking the heat and also checking the voltage drop. But that will be for another video.